Story, Vice President of Business Development.
Great to have you. So the session today, we're going to be talking about leveraging SharePoint 2013 and Yammer for social learning. And this session today is going to be a bit of interactivity. I'm going to begin the session by first talking about a little bit about social learning, but first kind of laying the groundwork for learning itself. And then I'll give you some kind of how it works with SharePoint. And then we're going to turn it over to Bill to talk about their solution, NanoLearn from IntraLearn. So let me start first with helping you understand a little bit about kind of the agenda and first introduce myself. I'm Joel Oleson. I've been working with CollabShow. It's my blog, my collaboration blog, and I work with a number of different vendors to help bring awareness to products and solutions in the community. And you could say that I've been working with SharePoint for about 13 years. Started in 2000 working with Microsoft, and I've actually had a great time working with the community and traveling all over the world, speaking at tech eds and SharePoint conferences and helping build user groups and communities all over. In fact, I just got back from Central Asia a couple of weeks ago, where we helped launch a new community in Uzbekistan, and as well just got back from New York speaking at SharePoint Fest, great conference on the East Coast in New York. Now let me introduce the topic. Actually, let's have Bill. Why don't you talk about your company a little bit?
Sure. So IntraLearn Software has been in the e-learning space for about 20 years. We were first building our product around online testing, integrated collaboration, use of single learning objects, and built it around a certified Microsoft application. So with that experience, we launched NanoLearn to tie into the growth around informal learning. So our solution is really tying to the trend around nuggets of information, collaboration. Our product is built on the Microsoft technology. You can see the list of technologies there: Link, Exchange, SharePoint. SharePoint's the foundation for the most part, SQL and SharePoint. So that's a quick summary. I'll get into more of what we do moving forward.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of new stuff that's happening as well that people have never seen before. So I think it's really going to be exciting to see what you guys have put together.
Yeah, exactly.
So the webinar today, first what we're going to do is kind of talk about why we're here. And I think one of the biggest challenges in SharePoint and Yammer is really getting people on board. It's around adoption, but part of that adoption is as well as getting the business on board. And getting the business on board, they're always looking for that business value. And I think the social learning, this informal learning, is really a good example of a solution that can help get the business on board. And as you're trying to engage your users, what better way of being able to engage them than through social learning? So I'm going to talk a little bit about learning and gamification strategies, introduce the social learning concept, and then hand it back over to Bill to talk about the solution. Now, you may have seen what the analysts are saying about adoption, and really that challenge is, that the biggest challenge is poor adoption, that idea that people prefer to use these other solutions like email, and the fact that a lot of these solutions have challenges with the UI themselves. People just don't like the experience. And as well, kind of digging in on adoption, we find out that a lot of the times it's IT gets stuck with deploying and rolling out the solution, but they really kind of just force their users to use it. It's the solution of the month, and it ends up being that challenge of users don't understand what it's for and how they can take advantage of it. So really, it's kind of three key things that I find in terms of addressing adoption and kind of looking at it broader. First off is, how do you get engagement? How do you keep people to not just bookmark it or whatever, or it be the home page and they jump off and go somewhere else as soon as they get there. But how do you build engagement into these solutions? And then building community, building that knowledge sharing, especially as it relates to SharePoint, around training and help. A lot of that comes from having teams use it together, and you get those champions inside of teams that can then help each other. And then beyond that, you create this loyalty, sets of expertise, where people become power users, and they help each other, and they start to leverage the platform. And essentially, a lot of this comes with the maturity of the platform, but I find as well it's a matter of the business really understanding how they can leverage the solution and kind of moving beyond it just being a platform that people are supposed to use. Now, digging in on corporate learning itself, how do people learn? You're on the job. A lot of people they learn by doing, right? But when there's new things, new innovative solutions, you've got experts in your company, how do people really learn and grow? How do you learn the new solution, as an example? People may have been using SharePoint 2007 in your company, and now there's a new version out, SharePoint 2013. How do people learn the new solution? How do people ramp up? A lot of people, they just expect, well, they're going to learn it on the job. Or we're going to send them out to training. But more and more that, going and having an instructor sitting down and spending a week of that user's time, or even your administrators and developers' time, it's extremely costly. And more people do want this kind of interactive, engaging experience of being able to learn along the way. And I think that what really has changed is we have so much information at our fingertips. And it's not just about learning SharePoint or learning technology. It could be that you're working in a paint factory and there's new colors of paint, and it's a matter of learning what are those new SKU numbers and understanding the new process for refining the paint, or it's different processes in every different company. But learning is a common need across all corporations. And the way that they solve it is with these universities inside the company. They're tasked with trying to put together computer-based training modules, and how do people learn, and how do you really know if they've learned what you're trying to tell them? And a lot of time it's not necessarily just computer-based training needs. It's broader needs of compliance. Hey, there's a new standard that has just come out. How are we going to make sure we educate and inform the users around this new standard? Because everybody really needs to understand how we can meet this code, or meet this new standard. And a lot of that is through this idea of corporate learning. But people implement these expensive systems and they still don't necessarily meet the needs. So introduce this idea of social learning, aligning these goals with the business, establishing clear business roles. And I kind of want to dig into these all in the next few slides. But I really want you to start thinking about this idea of kind of learning along the way, implementing sets of rewards, and really engaging your users in a way that they haven't been in the past. And a lot of these systems, we find that they already exist in a lot of consumer-based websites and things like that, where there already are rewards-based systems. There are already ways of recognizing people for what they're doing. I think of things like Duolingo, where you can learn language and get rewarded for it, and kind of go at additional levels and things like that along the way. We talk about gamification as a concept. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. So, as with any kind of implementation of SharePoint, it's a matter of understanding requirements of the business. But a lot of the times, IT will go to the business and say, hey, we're trying to implement this system. We've got SharePoint here. What do you guys want to do with it? They don't know. They don't know what you're trying to do. They don't know what it can do. They don't understand the capabilities of the platform, so it's a lot of the times is you really need to be able to sit down with these people, and it's not just in the IT role. It's kind of that analyst role of understanding, well, what are the existing business processes and how are they working? Is there optimization around paper? Is there different scenarios of how people are working? Well, everybody needs to learn. Everybody has some kind of education program or messages or vision or strategy or new policies. There's always news. There's always things that we'd love for our users to better understand and capture. And SharePoint and Yammer are both mechanisms for being able to disseminate and communicate in ways that information can be retrieved at will, over time as it makes sense to the users. And the focus here is really how do we align with those types of business goals so that we can address our adoption goals around the platform, but really it's ultimately how do we align this platform and how do we align some of these business value propositions with SharePoint and Yammer and with our own social learning goals. I think social learning is actually one of the better examples of how we can actually get adoption on the platform. So the next step is really establishing an approach and a process definition as we implement our strategy. So in focusing on our social learning strategy, a lot of it is kind of understanding what is our approach going to be. Is our approach going to be we're going to create a bunch of learning modules? Is it going to be a set of videos? Is it a document library we're going to put that content? Are they YouTube videos that we're actually leveraging from our industry that we're going to be capturing and trying to put in a set of links and creating a set of pages? So essentially a lot of it is understanding our approach, this process. It may be for some that you're trying to create a corporate YouTube style for communicating through videos. There may be some corporate training that you put together, but it may be in PDFs. Well, how do you make sure that those PDFs get disseminated in such a way that that information can be consumed? It's how do you create the Wikipedia of the organization so that people can get at acronyms and learn, or how do people get at that corporate knowledge that otherwise is locked up in people's heads? And then as people need help and support, what's your plan? What's your process around that? Now, the next thing is we want to ensure accomplish something. So in the beginning, we need to establish a baseline. And those baselines may be around the amount of training that people are at, what standards they're at. Do we have existing levels? How are people learning today? How do we establish certifications? What is that process we have today for working and understanding where we are with learning, and so that we can then evaluate as time goes on, what are the benefits of what we've implemented? What have people done since we've implemented this, and what was that based from our baseline? How has this impacted it? Now, as with any kind of change, we need to ensure that we're capturing the growth, but at the same time, we want these stories because we want to eventually evangelize these across lines of business. We also want to ensure that the stakeholders in the corporation are really seeing the value of those things we've essentially put people behind. The resources we've got on this. How do we ensure that the money and time we spent on taking those actions really made a difference? And along with those metrics, it's not just, hey, now we've got 30 more people that are certified, where before we had 10. Those are good metrics, but we want to capture those stories. We want to be able to evangelize those stories across the business.